everyone, welcome to day 3 of the 2024 eShopperReviews Game Awards, where we look at the best and worst games released on Nintendo Switch in 2024. I'm Jen Ip.
And I'm Jake McNeil.
And today's award, the Dubious Honors, are a look at the worst of 2024. The bad ports, the scams, the shameless ripoffs, and just overall worst everything of 2024.
Yeah, I feel like we need to call out the bad just as much as we need to celebrate the good.
And we'll be starting out with the worst monetization or scam.
Well, before we do, we should probably say, as we've been doing throughout the week here, we have a bunch of puppers running around here, so if you hear some extra skittering on tile or a dog lapping up water or something, we apologize. We're limited for places where we can record at the moment.
Explain how the games fit into this category exactly.
Worst monetization or scam. These are games where they're looking to cheat people out of their money one way or another. Either they're misrepresenting what the game is before you buy it, or they're trying to nickel and dime you afterwards. They're trying to do something that will make you enjoy your game less so that they can make more money.
Right. Who are the runners-up?
The runners-up in this category are Project Drift Japan Challenge, Heisting, Multi-Maze 3D, A Lost Note, and The New Denpa Men.
And the winner?
The winner for worst monetization or scam is Star Wars Hunters.
Oh, that's a shame.
I already spoke earlier about how I feel like this game is really underrated by critics because it is a good game, but we also cannot ignore how gross and disgusting the monetization of this game has been. Like I said earlier, they are advertising this game by putting up front and center a character that you cannot even get in the game without spending money. It has all sorts of other issues with constantly pushing you to grind or, spend money so that you can avoid that. I feel like this does so many things wrong, but it all culminates in taking what would have been a really good game and making it just something you don't want to play because of all the crap you have to deal with. And that's just really unfortunate.
Next up is most overrated. And how do you classify that?
So this is kind of the flip side of what we talked about earlier in the week for most underrated. This is where I look at Metacritic scores, and these games have way higher scores than I feel like they deserve. These are games that they may not be bad games, although some of them are, but they are liked by so many people, and I just cannot fathom why, because I just don't think they deserve the acclaim that they're getting.
What are the runners-up?
The runners-up for most overrated game on Nintendo Switch in 2024 are Witch Spring R, which got an 83 on Metacritic, Emio, the Smiling Man, Famicom Detective Club, which got a 74 on Metacritic, Mediterranea Inferno, which got an 87 on Metacritic, Wizardry, Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord, which got an 82 on Metacritic, and Llamasoft, the Jeff Minter story, which got an 85 on Metacritic.
And the most overrated game is?
The most overrated game on Nintendo Switch in 2024 is Alyssa Developer's Cut. This game is a retro-style survival horror type game, which I don't necessarily mind. I feel like these retro-style games can be good, and in fact, there have been one or two that I've really enjoyed. This is not one of them. The combat in this game is absolutely atrocious. The pacing is terrible. It starts you off facing off against a bunch of enemies really quickly on before you've even gotten used to the game's battle system. And I just feel like it does so much so wrong. Just for a game, not even a retro game, just a game. It brings back the worst qualities of that era of survival horror. And I feel like people are blinded by the nostalgia for this game. It is not a good game. And just because it evokes those feelings of, oh, I remember when games used to be like this, Yeah, I do too. I also remember how crappy so many of them were. This is, yeah.
Okay, then. Next up is The Laziest Copycat.
So I will say, as I often do, there is nothing wrong with a copycat as long as it is a good copycat. If you can take something someone else has done and add in your own flavor to it, do something to improve it, make it better, make it different in a good way, that's great. That's fantastic. All of these games did not do that.
Who are the runners up?
The runners up for laziest copycat are Cat Clean Ocean, Land of Mushrooms, King Krieg Survivors, Reaper Survivors, and Overheat Kitchen Chaos.
And the winner?
The winner for laziest copycat is Zumba Royal Marble Shooter Mania.
That's an awful name.
You find a lot of games that are really not great with these names where they toss in every word they can think of to try and, I guess, get search engine results. This game, it's not just a copycat, it's a copycat of a copycat, because the Zumba games are themselves copying off of the Zuma game from, oh geez, what is this, 20 years ago? Something like that. And a lot of them are actually decent. This one, I don't know, it's by a different developer and publisher than a lot of the others, so maybe they're just stealing the name and they figure they'll get away with it because, well, these other guys basically stole the name Zuma. Anyway, I don't know the legality of it. I'm not trying to make any claims there. The point of it is, this is an absolutely terrible game. In a game where your main focus is on aiming a target and then color matching, they mess up both of these elements, where there's not a good indication of where you're aiming, so it'll be very difficult to aim where you want. And then the colors that you're matching, a lot of them are so close to each other that it's hard to tell them apart. This is just a horrible, horrible game. It's lazy. It's a copy of other games that you can already get on Nintendo Switch that are actually decent, but even those games are copycats. So it's like a terrible Xerox copy of a Xerox copy.
Next up, we have the worst port / remake. And can you explain?
So when you port a game to Nintendo Switch, often you need to make cutbacks to that game. You need to make compromises because Nintendo Switch is underpowered. And I totally get that. With these games, the cutbacks that they make just seem a bit extreme and unnecessary for what you end up getting. Or they have some other problem that they've injected into the game that wasn't necessary. Or there's just something else going wrong here in this version of the game.
And who are the runners up?
The runners up for Worst Port or Remake on Nintendo Switch in 2024 are Go Mecha Ball and Warhammer 40,000 Daka Squadron.
And the winner?
The winner is Comic Store Arcade. So, right off the bat, this is not an ambitious port. This is a mobile port of a very simple mobile game. It is an idle game, which is one of the most simple types of game. You don't have much interaction with the game. You're just moving your little character around and automatically earning money as your customers buy whatever they're buying. And you're stocking the shelves and manning the register. That in and of itself would be fine. The problem with this game isn't a performance issue. The other games on this list had performance issues. No, this is an issue where, for whatever reason, the customers in your shop will just hit a wall at one point, or they'll get stuck on a corner and won't be able to progress, and everybody else gets stuck on them. This happens within minutes of playing and forces you to restart the game. And then you'll restart it, and it'll happen again within another couple minutes, and you'll have to restart.
That's awful.
And then you'll restart it again, and the game will flat out crash.
That's awful.
This is the only game that I've had to deal with this problem where it's literally unplayable past a few minutes. And that alone makes me say this is obviously the worst port on Switch this year.
Next up, we have the most overpriced. So, are we going to see a ton of expensive games on this list?
So, actually, none of the games on this list are the full $60 release price. The issue isn't that the price is super high. The issue is that what you're getting in these games is not worth the price that they're charging.
So what are the runners-up?
The runners-up for most overpriced game on Nintendo Switch in 2024 are Gunvolt Records Psychronicle, which is $15, Line, which is $10, Enzen, which is $10, N-Golf, which is $22, and Construct Farm, which is $10.
And the winner?
The winner for most overpriced game on Nintendo Switch in 2024 is Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which is $50.
What?
Now, to put this in context, Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a remake of a Game Boy Advance game that came out, I want to say, is like 20 years ago.
Wow.
I think this is actually the 20th anniversary of the original release of this game. And when this game originally released 20 years ago, it was $30. We're paying $20 more for a 20-year-old game now than we paid back when it first came out. You can still get the Game Boy Advance game on eBay under $15 if you watch prices.
Wow.
To be fair, this is actually a really good remake, but it's a really good remake of an old game, and it's so expensive. And Nintendo has done this multiple times, but unlike Super Mario RPG, unlike The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, this is not a beloved classic. It's a good game, but it's not a must-have game. So that they are charging such a ridiculous price for this, yeah, this one had to be my choice for most overpriced game this year.
Next up is the Who Asked for This award. I feel like this is just a really odd category.
These are games where you have to wonder why they even thought up of this in the first place, why they thought anyone would even want this game. These are games that I feel like were flawed in their inception.
Who are the runners-up?
The runners-up for the Who Asked for This award are Nblock's Unblock Your Creativity, Duck Creator, and Enzen.
The winner is...
The winner is Construct Farm. So to give you an idea of what Construct Farm is, you are presented with kind of a limited 3D landscape where you can place down buildings and structures and other things in a farm. And that's it. There's no gameplay. There's no trying to grow things in your farm. There's no goals that you're trying to meet. You are just placing things because you think they look pretty. Except they don't look pretty. The graphics in this game are terrible. You can't change the viewpoint. And the game runs horribly. The performance in this game, even though it looks terrible, it is rough. It is super rough. So why play this game? There's no goal. And if you're playing it because, oh, I want to make a pretty looking farm, you're never going to get a pretty looking farm out of this game. There's nothing pretty in this game. Why does this game exist? There's no point to it.
The Why is this taking so much space on my memory card award?
You might be surprised to find out that this award is for the game that is just taking up way too much space on your memory card, given what is actually in the game.
Thanks, Jake.
You're welcome, Jen.
Oh, who are the runners-up?
The runners-up for the Why is this taking up so much space on my memory card award are Warhammer 40,000 Daka Squadron, which takes up a massive 8.7 gigabytes on your card and still doesn't look great, and Line Time, which takes up 910 megabytes on your card and doesn't look great either.
And the winner?
The winner for the Why is this taking up so much space on my memory card award is Multi-Maze 3D, which takes up 436 megabytes on your memory card or in your internal memory. And the reason why this is here, obviously this isn't anywhere near as big as Warhammer was, but Warhammer is at least trying to present something visually interesting. Line Time is at least trying to present something that has some visual flair to it. Multi-Maze 3D is a mobile port, and it looks like a mobile port. It has the most simple, bare-bones 3D graphics imaginable against a flat, featureless background. And for this, it's taking up nearly a half a gig of memory on your Nintendo Switch. Why? Where did all of that go to? There's nothing interesting in this game. It is visually bland and boring. I talked earlier in the week about Animal Well, which is under 100 megabytes and looks visually stunning. And at over 4 times that amount, this game cannot be bothered to make something that even looks interesting. I just don't get it.
On to the most disappointing. And this is where we expect good things, but got bad results.
Yeah, that's about right, I feel.
So who are the runners-up?
The runners-up for the most disappointing award are Between Horizons, Endless Ocean Luminous, Emio, the Smiling Man, Famicom Detective Club, The New Denpa Men, and Mario and Luigi Brothership.
And the winner?
Cat Quest 3.
Didn't we play that together?
We did play that together. I really like the Cat Quest series, especially Cat Quest 2. I feel like as a more family-friendly alternative to games like Diablo, it is just a perfect game to play with someone who's not much of a gamer or maybe a young one. And I think it hit that spot really well. And I expected much the same from its sequel. And the sequel is actually trying to do something a bit ambitious by introducing an open world element. The problem is this open world meant that there was no control over where you went, and because of that, you could easily find yourself in situations where you were way overpowered by the enemies there, and this completely kills the whole notion of this is a game that anyone can play, because even if you're a skilled gamer, you could find yourself in over your head far too easily. And both Jen and I, even though we're both pretty skilled gamers, I would say, quickly found ourselves disappointed with this one. And
Next up, we have Nintendo's biggest blunder.
So this is some of the most frustrating, dumb, or outright bad things Nintendo themselves did in 2024.
Ooh. So who are the runners-up?
Well, much less who in terms of what they've done.
What did they do that was so bad?
Okay, well, the things they did that were so bad but weren't the worst thing. Well, first, we have the Nintendo Switch eShop becoming a hellscape of shovelware, scam games, and publishers churning out multiple versions of the same game to flood the eShop. That's one thing. Another thing is they still have not fixed long-running problems on the Nintendo Switch, like Joy-Con drift, the memory problems, the eShop being difficult to navigate. And while these have been problems for years, I'm still going to include them here because they're still not fixed. Another problem is a lot of their major first-party releases have had performance issues for some reason. Most notably, I'm thinking The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and Mario and Luigi Brothership, which both had frame rate problems this year. And it's like, these games are not so major, they're not so graphically impressive that it really makes sense that they should have those kinds of issues. And the final runner-up here is Nintendo withholding information about their game's developers. And in this case, I'm talking about Mario and Luigi Brothership and Princess Peach Showtime, where they basically told people, oh, you want to know who's developing these games? Wait until you get to the end credits in the game and you'll find out.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so what was the worst thing that they did this year?
My choice for Nintendo's biggest blunder in 2024 is Nintendo not giving credit to composers in the Nintendo Music app. Now, I should clarify something here, which is a lot of the other problems I've talked about here are bigger issues, but this particular issue would have been easy to resolve. It would have been an easy fix. It would have been easy to avoid in the first place. And that is, just put the names of who created these songs in your music app. The entire reason this app is even possible is because of the work of these musicians. And for you to not give them credit, Nintendo, is really kind of despicable.
All right, we have a new category, which is worst hardware.
Yeah, I reviewed a lot of hardware in 2024, and a lot of it was not good.
What are the runners up then?
The runners up for worst hardware on Nintendo Switch in 2024 are the Leadjoy, I'm not sure the pronunciation, VX2 Aimbox keyboard and mouse adapter, the AIM Xenix AX200 gaming adapter, the Mitrix Switch Pro wireless controller, the Bokasuya Switch controller, and the Acnes Gullikit Goku USB wireless controller adapter.
And the winner for the worst hardware?
We have a tie, which is something I normally try to avoid, but both of these have the same problem. This is a tie between the SimGal wireless Switch gamepad controller and the non-Bliep Switch Pro wireless controller. And both of these are game controllers that died on me within an hour or two of using them.
And they were fully charged?
Fully charged.
And by die, you mean?
By died, I mean they're bricked. They're unusable, won't take a charge, won't turn on. They are dead within an hour or two. And while there are some other things that I tried out on Nintendo Switch this year that just didn't work, I could at least chalk that up to, well, maybe I didn't understand how to use the software correctly, or maybe it's incompatible with the USB cable I used, or something like that. I don't know. These two, there's no excuse. There's no reason why a controller should just up and die on you within an hour or two. And it's not like I'm particularly rough with my controllers.
No, you're not. You're very careful with them.
Yeah, so these two, I feel like there are going to be people out there who actually spend money on these, and only to find out that within an hour or two, their money is completely wasted. So avoid these, absolutely.
All right. Next up, we have the worst game.
Yep, this is it. The worst of the worst.
What are the runners up?
The runners up for worst game on Nintendo Switch in 2024 are Overheat Kitchen Chaos, Seaport Tycoon 2024, Off-Road Masters Motocross Races, Zumba Royal Marble Shooter Mania, and Construct Farm.
And the winner?
The winner, or loser depending on how you look at it, is Comic Store Arcade.
That was awful.
And I feel like the reasons why I pretty well laid out before. It is absurd that any game could be allowed to release on the eShop with it crashing within a few minutes of playing, with it being unplayable within a few minutes of playing every time you fire it up. That's inexcusable. It shouldn't exist on Nintendo Switch.
Okay, and that does it for day 3 of the eShopperReviews 2024 Game Awards. Thank you for listening, and please come back throughout the week of January 13th through January 17th, 2025, to see more awards announced. And remember, if you want to read about the games mentioned here, head to eShopperReviews.com. And if you enjoyed this content, please consider heading over to our Patreon page to support eShopperReviews and gain access to even more content. Thank you again, everyone. This has been Jen Ip.
And Jake McNeil.
And we hope you've enjoyed some great games this year.
Hopefully better than these.
Yeah.
Later.